Okay, what we're going to take a look at is validation now, and if we take a look at the guides in the Formik documentation, then it tells us how we can deal with validation inside here. And if we scroll down in this particular guide, then all we need to pass this is a validation schema. But what Formik recommends is to use a third-party library, and Yup is one that works with Formik's validation schema. So that's the one we'll use, and in order to use this we need to npm install Yup, and it's not written in TypeScript, so we do need to also install the types for this as well. But then we can use the Yup schema and pass this to Formik, and it'll automatically validate our fields for us. So let's head back to VS Code and we'll go ahead and install this. So we'll open up the console once again, or the terminal, and we'll say npm install Yup, and press return. And this installed Yup version 0.32.8, and what we'll also do is specify at types /yup, and we'll save -dev and press return. And slightly different version here for this, but it really doesn't matter. And what we'll do is we'll add the import for Yup. So we'll say import asterisk as Yup from Yup. And now we can make use of this inside our form. So what we'll do, we'll just scroll down below our activity here. Doesn't really matter where we put this thinking about it, but we'll put it here. And we'll say const validation schema equals, and then we can say yup.object. And this Yup object is going to take our properties in our form and use this to validate against them. So what we'll do, we'll just start with a title for now. So we specify title, and then we can say Yup string, and then we can specify what validation we want to put on this. So in this case, we're going to say it's required. Now, once again, there's a whole bunch of different pre-written validators you can use, things like email, things like regular expressions, but we're just going to stick with what we've done in our API, and we're going to specify required. And we're going to give it a message saying the activity title is required. And then what we need to do is we need to come down to our Formik, where we're passing properties to Formik itself, and let's just rearrange these to bring them down so they're all on the same screen. And what we'll do is we'll say validation schema equals, and we'll pass in the validation schema that we created above. And now our form is wired up with validation. But we need to display the validation on the browser, of course. And what we can do, and what I'll do just for now, is we'll specify form field that we get from Semantic UI just to give a little bit of styling to the title. And I'll just cut the field and put it inside the form field there. And under this, what we'll use is an error message component that again we get from Formik. And inside here, we'll specify the name equals to title, which wires up this error message with the field with the name of title. And then we can render what we want to happen if there's an error. So I'll say render equals, and then open curly brackets, and we'll say error as the parameter that we get passed into this, and then we'll use a label that we get from Semantic UI. And we'll make it a basic label. We'll give it a color equal to red, and the content we'll set equal to the error. And let's move this down so it doesn't fall off the screen. And with this in place, we'll be able to go and test our validation. So let's head back to our browser and let's just refresh the page. And interestingly, in my create activity, we're constantly loading. So this looks like a mistake that is in place from earlier on. And if we go to our activity store, then what we're doing is we've got our loading initial flag set to true, but we don't need that set to true because we're setting this in our load activities. So what we'll do is we'll just set this to false, and this will prevent the never-ending loading flag that we're seeing there. And I'll just refresh the page again, and now we see our form. So we've got our title, And if we click in the title and click out, we can see that this field is now being validated, and we can see our error message there. And if we start typing, it goes away. If we remove the text, the error comes back again. So we need to touch the fields before we see the validation there. But that's how we deal with validation in Formik. But what we don't want to do really is have to repeat this behavior in the activity form for each of our fields. It would be much better if we can create our own reusable text input that contains all the logic to check for the validation, that contains all of the things that we need, that's much easier and simpler to use. So what we'll do next is we'll take a look at creating a reusable text input that does all of this for us in just a small one-liner that we can use in our forms. And we'll take a look at that next.